So, Steve Clarke's announced his squad for the upcoming Denmark and Belarus games. There's a few surprises in there and certainly lots to get talking about. This is the No Scotland No Party podcast supported by Ball Bags, official boxers of the men's national team. And if you'd like to get your hands on a £20 Ball Bags voucher, all you need to do is engage in our socials and we'll be picking someone at random to hand out the voucher to. Let's get stuck in.
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game, the game. No Scotland, no party, podcast for the Tartan Army.
Okay, welcome back everybody. We're joined as usual with Dave Watson, the guy who's been in more World Cups than I've had hot dinners. Our other regular guest is Craig Ferguson, the man who walked 1,000 miles over to Germany. We should, you've done a lot more than that, Craig. I should find something else to say.
Mate, I think, Craig, honestly, I reckon that I'm going to be the guy in the pub at 60 years old going, see, when I was your age, mate, do you remember the Euros 2024? And they'll be like, shut up, mate, have a drink and be quiet. So you can call me the guy that walks. I'm absolutely, it's not a problem at all.
Right, and more importantly, we have a new panellist with us today, and it is Hazel Stewart. Now, most of you will probably know Hazel. You'll have heard her on the radio, might even have read some of the stuff she's been writing about the Tartan Army, but Hazel's a bit of a Tartan Army legend. How are you getting on, Hazel? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's an absolute delight to be part of the fourth man. Hopefully I bring good luck to the remainder of this year and next year, and who knows, we might be in the World Cup next year.
Oh,
She
Hazel's
says.
thinking already. That's good.
Fingers
That's it.
crossed.
You've got to drink to be a half glass full, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
we'll get stuck in. So, Clarke's announced the squad. It's just got a Clarke squad written all over this one. So, goalkeepers, we've got Gunn, Clarke and Kelly. Defenders, Hanley, Johnson, McKenna, Ralston, Robertson, Suter, Hendry, Tierney, Hickey, Hyam. Christie, Doak, Gilmer, McGinn, McLean, Johnson, Ferguson, Miller in midfield. And up front, our options are Adams, Dykes, Bowie and Hurst. Now, I'm not going to start you off in the defenders, Hazel, because I know you like talking about Grant Hanley. So we'll probably...
Me? Really? I would never talk about Mr. Hanley ever.
So Dave, let's jump into you with the goalkeepers. What were you thinking about the goalkeepers there that we've got? Not really many surprises, is there?
I don't think there's any surprise, right, in the keepers. I think we all, those are the three we all expected. The worry's obvious, right? That they're just not getting games for their clubs.
Yeah.
And so whereas even when we did the first one of these podcasts at the beginning of the year, we talked about Gordon, right? And we had a discussion about his age and would he still be all right for the World Cup? And we made a couple of jokes about that. But honestly, at least he was playing. And and we were all feeling like basically he's the number one. It was really between him and Gunn, but we were pretty happy with Gordon. The issue now is you've got three guys who are just not playing for their clubs. Gunn seems to have gone backwards really in terms of reputation, how everybody's thinking about him. I guess we're going to start with Clarke, but it's hard to be enthusiastic or really feel that confident. I feel about any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I know we said we weren't going to talk about lineups, but I'm already thinking I don't know if he will go with Clarke. I think he might go with Gunn, but anyway.
I hope he does. I hope he does with Gunn, at least with Gunn. And I know he should have saved a lot last year, but I think with Gunn, if I can interject, he has had pretty much a whole year of European qualifiers in 2023, so he has had that exposure where Zander Clarke is just, for me, having watched him in a couple of games, just very worrying. And I don't think he's had much exposure internationally. So I know we all kind of think Angus Gunn should have saved a lot more last year, but he was the guy effectively in between the sticks for the replacement for Gordon.
Yeah, I like you say, I think I echo your points when none of us are sat here extremely optimistic on any of the of those options. They don't fill your world with light. I just to probably talk on Gunn's performances when he has been the number one choice. I do just think it's been really, really poor showing from him, to be honest with you. I mean, there's not been one game off the top of my head, and honestly, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, where I can go like really, really solid game there, like proved himself to kind of take that position. I just and again, I feel like every sort of big match, you're always looking. It's like if anyone shoots and it's on target, I feel like we're gunning goals. It's a goal. So I don't know. Again, not the greatest options on any front, but I would prefer Xander Clarke for myself. But hey ho, we'll see what happens.
It's crazy because ever since I've been supporting Scotland, we've always had really good goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Never think about of a time where we didn't have good goalkeepers. I know a lot of people thought Alan Rough wasn't very good, but I rated Rough. I thought he was a decent enough goalie. But yeah, we just find ourselves in a really, really strange position at the moment. And
You're almost thinking, would it be better with having Alan Rough than Xander Clarke right now? I mean, that's how bad things are. But at least we're not thinking about Kieran Slicker.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just going to say that, Hazel. I mean, you know, I think we're all, you know, none of us are feeling that enthusiastic about the goalkeepers at all. But you know, we are where we are, to state the obvious, and I think we're all pretty sure that there's nobody else out there at the moment that, you know, that Clark's just ignoring or whatever. You know, I mean, he tried Slicker, and you know, obviously that was disastrous. You know, to be honest. So I think, you know, these are the three best options, but obviously they're not good. They're not particularly good options.
Yeah, I mean, just to interject quickly, I did play in goals when I played football. So if Clark's listening or anything like that, like I obviously I keep relatively fit, so I reckon I could do a decent job. But I don't think I'm getting a call anytime soon.
Good stuff.
who was
Good
it?
stuff.
It was Dembele scored against you, didn't he? It was.
That's right. Yeah, Karamoko Dembele. One name of many, but I feel like even the fact that the first mention of my ability was someone scoring against me is probably telling why I'm not still playing football in goals. So I will quickly move on from that one.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of this. This is giving me depression. Right, let's move on to the defenders. This is much more interesting. I'm waiting to see Hazel's face here. Hanley, Johnson, McKenna, Ralston, Robertson, Suter, Henry, Tierney, Hickey, Hine. There's some good ones in there. But Hazel, do you want to start off with that? How are you feeling about those defenders?
I'm trying to be a glass half full. Look, excuse me. I think Hanley, he's done well, right? He's done well in the past. He's had good games and bad games. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, Craig maybe hasn't got to that stage yet, but when you get to a certain age, it's like dog years, you know, in terms of footballers. They get to a point, you know, they hit their 30s and the legs just don't carry them. And sadly for Hanley, that he's gone past that stage now where the guys that he's playing up against are far too fast for him and he can't get back quick enough. And that's the only sort of negative really thing I've got to say about Hanley. It's just he's too old now, and there is a point in time that you kind of have to say, well, it's time to let others step up. And I've always been a huge fan of Scott McKenna. I think, you know, living down south, known a lot of Nottingham Forest supporters. When McKenna was playing at Forest, they always used to say, you'll never beat McKenna. And I know he was at Aberdeen, but I think he's a great centre back. He's got pace on him. He's got fitness. He was playing in La Liga for a whole year. So I think he's a natural centre back, and I think that's what Clarke should be starting with, not the Hanleys. And sadly, I'm talking about Hanley, but I watched him. I was in Athens, and in the second half, he had about 7 energy packs thrown at him from the dugout, which was rather worrying. And I said to the guys beside me, Hanley's going to pass out before the 90th minute. But we know Clarke's that's his go-to, right? Is his guy. So we know he's going to start. Henry, I think he's playing in Saudi Arabia. It's difficult. He's good games and bad games. I'm not so familiar with him. And Johnson again. you know, he's kind of mixed. You know, he's good games and bad games. Ralston came under Pelters last year during the Euros, but I have to say that I thought Ralston's getting better and better. I mean, people are saying he's not having any games at Celtic, but I feel Ralston's got a bit better, a bit more confident on the ball. And I thought towards the end of last year, particularly against Croatia and Poland, he was, you know, he was covering, you know, balls that really, you know, he wasn't doing such a great job during the Euros. But what I am absolutely delighted to see is Hickey back. I think we really missed him, and I think looking at how we performed in 2023, you know, he was, you know, a mainstay for Clarke. He was in the first, you know, starting 11. You know, obviously he's had 2 injuries. I don't think he'll play a full game personally. I don't see that happening.
No,
So whether he's on as a sub or, you know, they trial him for a bit, we'll have to wait and see. Robertson, well, again, we're looking at, I'm talking to guys down here from Liverpool fans. He is a yard or so out of Bath now, and I think we can see that now, especially the you know at Liverpool, he's now on the bench rather than the starting 11. Suter, people have mixed reviews about Suter. I think he played okay last year. Again, he had a nightmare beginning of 2024, but again, I think he's got better and better. And Kieran Tierney, old biscuit hips himself, you know, I just worry. Kieran Tierney is, I love when he plays with Andy Robertson. I mean, a lot of people slated the two of them in the Euros last year, but I think they play extremely well together. I think they belong near each other. They read each other's minds. They have that natural ability to know exactly where each other is. So, so I would, you know, I think Kieran Tierney has to be in the starting 11, but I do worry. You know, I know he's playing regularly for Celtic, but he's injury prone, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Denmark are a really physical side, so it'll be interesting to see how he performs as well.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Dave? I'll be honest, I'm a bit concerned with Kieran and Robertson in the left that we don't have any cover for them in the two matches because, you know, as Hazel said, Robbo's not been playing and Tierney's he's liable to an injury and we don't have anyone. I thought Doig might have made the squad, or even I know he's going to go into Taylor before, but I was a bit surprised by that. What do you reckon, Dave? What your opinion of the defenders he's picked?
I think, I mean, I think he's picked, with the exception of Hanley, right? I think he's picked the right squad, to be honest. And I look at it because I look at it by position, and I look on the right back. So everybody agrees it's brilliant that Hickey's back, and I see that he's starting for the first time tonight. He's just started for Brentford away at Bournemouth tonight. Right. So, you know, let's hope that he comes through that all right. Maybe he'll get a game for Brentford at the weekend as well. I agree he won't play 90 minutes, but in terms of the squad, you've got Hickey at right back, and you've got Ralston as well. And Ralston is starting now for Celtic since Alistair Johnson's injury last week. Right. Ralston is starting now. So I'd say you've got probably the two, you know, those two right backs, and Max Johnston is there as well if need be. If you jump to the left back position, I take your point about, you know, maybe Andy Robertson is obviously he's not starting. Maybe he's, you know, there's be a problem with him, and maybe Tierney will be injured. But honestly, having two left backs in the squad and two of such high quality, I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too.
And then you go for the central defence, and I mean, so to me, McKenna and Suter is the partnership that jumps out as the one that I'd try and build on. And I, you know, without repeating what Hazel said, you know, I just would basically go along with what you said there. And you know, and then as backups to them, you know, of course you've got Hanley. Dom Hyam as well. I don't know anything about him, honestly. I mean, I know he plays for Blackburn, but that's about as much as I know. But I suppose Hendry is the other one. Hendry's the other one who you can have in the squad covering for the centre back positions. So on the assumption we start with 4 at the back, right, and we don't go back to playing 5 at the back, then I think basically it's, you know, Hickey or Ralston, it's Suter and McKenna. and then it's Robertson and Tierney. And probably those are two of the substitutions you're going to make during the game, so you can have a big argument about who starts and who comes on in those two full-back positions. And honestly, Craig, your question about the squad. So, we have to challenge ourselves and say, well, okay, you want to take some people out or you want to add some. Who would you add? Well, Josh Doig, maybe, as you said, right, as the other left back. But then do we need 3 left backs? Maybe, the right back, would you bring Patterson back? I mean, I think I've just said we already got 3 there. So I wouldn't have done that. I don't see any other great central defenders, to be honest with you.
My other thought about Tierney was I thought we were a bit needy on the left of midfield in terms of subs. I know we're going to talk about substitutions later on. I thought it might give us a wee bit more depth there, and maybe that could have allowed. Anyway, we'll talk about midfield in a minute.
But Craig, that's a good point. And you and I touched on it, I don't know, a few days ago at some stage. I mean, from what I know, and obviously we don't know everything that Clarke knows at all, but from what I know, I would start with Robertson as left back and have Tierney on the bench, because I think Tierney gives you flexibility, to your point, of coming on, perhaps to replace Robertson. You can bring him on if you need to as a central defender as well, but also you can bring, if you're looking for somebody to play on the left side further up and get some crosses in this, with 20 minutes to go or whatever, you can bring Tierney on and say go down the wing and cross, right? And so to me, I would keep Tierney as a substitute and bring him on because he gives you that kind of flexibility.
Yeah. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you guys have said already. I think that obviously seeing the likes of Hickey back in the squad, I think it's very positive to see the sort of formation of hopefully what begins to be the best Scotland squad that we start to see again. Obviously, it goes without saying, get absolutely ransacked with injuries and stuff like that over the past few years, and obviously missing Hickey was massive, and I think that's definitely a sort of scapegoat that everyone looked to in a lot of games, was that right back position especially. So it's good to see back again. Do I think they'll play a full 90 minutes? I don't, but it's obviously good. I've seen some people saying that he was rushed back and stuff, but look, you pick your best players, especially with Scotland. Look, we can't pick and choose, and having him back in the squad is obviously great. I think with the Robbo point as well, like touching on Robertson, like I don't think that there's an issue. Obviously, we talk about the 2 left backs down that left hand side. Like I agree with what Dave said. Obviously, I think that having those 2 as your choices, especially for Scotland, it's a great thing to have. And obviously, Robbo's not been playing; he's not been getting many minutes. He's obviously Liverpool's, sub left back going into the season by the looks of things. But one thing that you've got to say is he's clearly looked like he has been slightly declining in a Scotland top, but you've got to remember that, while he's being the sub left back, this is for arguably the best team in club football at the moment. You're not talking, and he's not playing in Saudi Arabia or other places. You're talking arguably, the best club team at the moment, like I said. So it is still a good position to be in. The rest of it, the centre halves, like I said, I don't really think I can add much to what you guys didn't say. So no, I'm feeling positive about that. Like I said, hopefully back on the up, and we'll see a bit of fitness coming back for the likes of Hickey. So feeling good.
What about the midfielders? You happy with those?
Aye. I mean, again, I always do this sort of rain dance where I'm like, oh, look at me, it's so pessimistic, but I feel like you always need to sort of do that. But no, I do feel good. I feel like obviously it goes without saying, midfield options has probably been where we've had the most options for a long while in terms of strong players and reliable players as well. So I'm feeling good about the midfield. Obviously, you've got some absolute, first names on the team sheet when you talk about the midfield and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. But no, I'm feeling good. What about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, the only question I've got in there is McLean, and again, I'm harping back to trying to get a wide person. And I think had we left McLean out and perhaps put Forrest in, I know Christie is obviously a wide player, but I think Christie. So I think if you have Christie coming back into the defensive midfield and Forrest wide, I think Christie and Forrest would offer you more in that team than Christie and McLean would.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's my opinion. I know.
No, well, I would agree, but don't you think that that's kind of telling on the way that Clarke, wants to play and the way that where he chooses to put trust in certain players? It just screams of bringing McLean on in the 60th minute and being like, rather than trying other new things, which it can be frustrating at times when it goes without saying, can't it? But yeah, I obviously seen that was Hanley and McLean seemed to be the two biggest gripes that people had with the squad, and I feel like you can't really do a podcast talking about the squad without mentioning the two of them and their selection. It can be quite puzzling.
Yeah. Hazel, what are you thinking about it?
So here's my point. So I think there was a number of players that were out of position. I think Christie was played out of position. I can't remember which game it was, but I couldn't understand it. But I think it was was it possibly the Greece game? But this is the problem I think I've got with Clarke. He does. I mean, we saw that with McTominay, that he was out of position probably until I think they found that sweet spot for him. He was never. He used to talk about he was a defense midfield, and he was never that. He's an attacking midfield, and we're obviously seeing that. At Napoli, he's scoring in the goal he scored just on Saturday again. But I think for me, I quite like McLean. I mean, I've met him actually when I came all the way back from Cyprus, with sitting beside him on the plane after the Cyprus game, and he's a lovely guy. But
leave your bias at the door, Hazel. You can't be doing that.
But saying that, he has his moments. But if I look back at the Portugal away game, that McTominay header and that goal in 7 minutes against Portugal came from a beautiful cross between McGinn to McLean and onto McTominay's head. So I think he can create a lot of chances when people are played in the right position. I think with Clarke, he tends to tweak things around quite a lot, and then you find out people are completely unbalanced in the team, and we keep moving from. I don't think we're a back five ever. I just don't think that's how we play as a Scotland team. People might feel differently about that, but it's about people playing in the right positions and where they're naturally comfortable at club level. That needs to be then transposed into the Scotland squad. You can't then play somebody out of kind of kilter, because then that's not their natural ability. So I think people are quite harsh. John McGinn, I mean, again, he's like Robbo, he's getting to a point where he's getting older, but Billy Gilmour, I think, is very underrated still. I think he's a workhorse, and I think it takes a big man to step back, and I think Callum McGregor last year realised after the Euros that he was done, and he knew for every every time he took that call from Clarke and took up that position as a midfielder, he knew he was taking that jersey away from Gilmour. So I think it was a big person from McGregor to say, what, it's enough. I've kind of reached my peak now, and there's a guy waiting in the wings, which is Gilmour, and I think he creates a lot of chances. I'm excited about him. I'm excited about. We have to remember how to put Gannon Doak. We can't, say the Cokie Dokie anymore, which is a shame. But I'm excited. I'm excited about the midfield. Genuinely, I think we've got a Serie A midfield. When I don't remember ever recalling that we've had this Italian kind of. We should be doing much better. So let's, with that mindset, we're looking at a brilliant Serie A midfield. We've got the Fergusons, the Gilmours, McTominay. It is exciting to see what and I know McTominay was particularly quiet in the games against Greece. I know he's got the penalty, but I'm wondering if he's been spending more focus on his club, trying to get himself established at Napoli. I really hope that McTominay steps up now and says, right, I've got myself established at Napoli. Now I'm going to really work my socks off for Scotland. I know he was injured against Iceland, but I'd really like to see McTominay step up again and be the guy that he was during 2023, because he's as I say, I think he's got so much better at Napoli now, and he's got much more confidence. So we need these guys working for us. And Ferguson again is another fantastic player in this area.
Yeah, he's not. Unfortunately, he's not actually played this season yet. He's not been used. But I think what you're saying about McTominay is absolutely right. I think he's not played like a Ballon d'Or nominee for Scotland recently, but hopefully now he's got that under his belt. He can put on a show for us.
Yeah.
Certainly for the next 2 games. What are you thinking, Dave? Any thoughts about the midfield?
Yeah, I mean, just first of all on Kenny McLean, right? So honestly, I think it is weird that he's in the squad because he's injured, right? And I just checked this earlier this evening. So he had an operation on his ankle during the summer, and as of 5 days ago, he was saying that he hoped in 1 week's time, so that's still not today, but that's the end of this week or something. He hoped to start training again, right, in a week's time. So the idea that he's in the international squad, it has to be that Clarke feels some kind of personal loyalty, couldn't think of who else to put in or something, because, I mean, he's not played at all for Norwich this season for obvious reasons, right? Because he's been injured and he's not even back training yet, right? So the idea that in, what are we now, we're, 10 days away from the game, the idea that in 10 days' time he's going to play a significant part against Denmark just makes no sense to me.
So why so you're saying that? So why didn't you think about Tommy Conway? I mean, is he injured?
So I don't know. I mean, there's all to me it makes no sense to have him in the squad. I mean, Hanley and McLean are the two I disagree about. I can kind of understand why Clarke puts Hanley in a way, but with McLean, who, I mean, I've loved over the years, right? But he's injured. So and I do think I don't think he's as good as the others anyway, right?
He come on in one match. I'm sure he came on as a sub. Did he not this season for one?
Don't think so. No, you can check. But the other thing I'd say though, just while you're checking, so you look at the other 7 midfielders that we've got, right? So excluding McLean, and honestly, 6 of them for sure we'd be really happy to be starting with. Right, they give us tough choices. The other one who's kind of that I've excluded from that is Lennon Miller, who I really like. I was really strong that he ought to get a game against Liechtenstein, which he did. And I think he did well. But whether he's a starter yet or whether he's ready to play a huge part against Denmark, I'm not sure. But the other 6, are excellent. And so, you'd have to say the real issue is we've, on the assumption we're not going to do anything like a false 9 or whatever, right? Then we've got, almost certainly 5 midfield positions, right? And, 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-1-1, whatever you want to say, but you end up with 5. And the issue is, how are you going to fit Christie, Ferguson, Doak, Gilmer, McGinn and McTominay? What's your combination? Who are the 2? Who are the 3? Let's say, and who's the one who you're planning to bring on as a substitute? And I think that, having listened to your briefing at the start, Craig, I guess that's a discussion you want to have next week rather than now, right? But I'd say it's a really strong midfield, and we're in a great position. We've got 6 great players, the Serie A experience, all those things, right? And the question is, how do we get playing, and I actually really agree with Hazel's point as well about playing players in their right positions. We talked about this way back before the Athens game, I remember, and then immediately afterwards, right? In terms of doing that. So I think that's maybe a discussion for us for next week: is who are the 5 out of the 6, and where where do they start? Who are the 2? Who are the 3? And who might be the substitute who comes on?
Yeah. Right, well, I've got McLean coming on in the last match at the weekend for the last 23 minutes, but that might be wrong.
I'm going on I was going on a BBC report. I googled just before we started. Which but I mean, there's not to say the BBC's right about everything or even much, but I'm just telling you that's what it said.
Right.
Anyway,
just quick on Lennon Miller. I was in Liechtenstein, and Lennon Miller is a very, very mature guy. I was really impressed with him as well. Just to add to your point, David, he was superb. I thought he handled himself really well for such a young guy.
Yeah.
So, because we need to be bringing on younger.
Yeah.
This is the time to do it. You can't just keep saying, "Well, we'll sub them." It's now or never, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so let's look at the forwards. I was saying this to you the other night, Dave. When I'm sitting watching the scores come in and I see a Scotland player score, usually I'm absolutely over the moon. I was watching it the other night and Furuhashi come off in about the 88th minute and Dykes come on and scored. And I'm like, oh, he's going to be back in the squad. Now, what he'd scored, we talking about last year, was about a goal in 36 hours of football or something. It was ridiculous. One goal in the whole season, 22 games. But he's scored one already in 4 appearances. He's still to start a game. But Dykes finds himself back in the squad. The guy boils my blood. I just don't understand it. I don't know. I know it's not a popular opinion, but he finds himself in there. George Hurst is another one. He's been playing an awful lot of football, in all fairness to him, and with 1 goal to his name. But Kieran Bowie seems like the one to me. That kid really excites me.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see him, and I just hope that we get to see him. More than just the last 5 minutes of a game.
yeah.
Dave, what do you reckon about the front line? But he's going to go with Adams, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he'll go with Adams. So I mean, I think he'll go with Adams, but I think he might. To make it work, I think what you want to do is say to Adams, you've got to run like crazy and run the defense, try and tire the defense. Adams can't hold the ball up all that well,
No.
right? But he can run, and he can. And what I'm thinking is maybe this is an example where you say to Adams, you're going to get 60 or 70 minutes, and then I'm going to bring on either Dykes or Bowie, depending maybe how the game's going.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I'd say in defence, I'd say 2 things in defence of Dykes. I mean, I think we did miss him in the Euros. I felt we really, we just missed that option of Dykes holding things up and also just being big and frightening defences and, being able to go for high balls, high crosses, all those things. And the other thing is, he can hold it up. And given the way we're playing, where our let's be honest, our goals have been coming from midfield, mainly from McTominay and McGinn, right, over the last 2 or 3 years. So if a forward can hold it up and then lay it back to McTominay or McGinn coming through to score,
or McLean.
Well, McLean famously indeed. In one of our best games ever, I know, Craig.
Yeah, what a magic hearing. That was one of them.
I mean,
sorry, Craig, on you go.
No, sorry. I mean, I think I agree with Dave as well. I know obviously you're not the biggest Dykes fan, Craig, but I do. It's an inoffensive selection to me. I do think that there's a place for him in the squad, especially if people like we've obviously spoke about. You've got your McLeans and stuff being selected. At least I can actually argue the case that Dykes brings something different, and I think that you're right, Dave. We definitely missed having that different option and a big physical presence at the Euros. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I agree. You don't want to get suckered into he scored 1 goal. When the record was obviously so poor previous to that. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, Bowie's the one that excites everyone, and I think that especially on social media and stuff like that, obviously it's a fantastic goal. But I think that a lot of the hype really right now is surrounding Bowie, and I think people are really itching to see him in a Scotland shirt and see what he can actually do. Because at the end of the day, if you don't give players like Bowie a chance when they're on form like this, it's when will they get it? So I think everyone's excited about Bowie, definitely. What about you, Hazel? What are you thinking about the forwards?
No, I totally agree with all of you. I mean, as I say, I think we missed that. To trust Dicey to go over his ankle literally days before we went off to Germany, but as you say, he is a guy that frightened. I mean, the tattooed man from Brisbane, he's just he frightens a lot of people, but he does hold up the play. I mean, you think as a forward he should be frightening and scoring, and sadly that's just it's not his style. He just doesn't do that. But you're right. He holds up. He's a strong guy, and he's not scared to get in amongst defenders. And Che Adams, I don't get. I mean, obviously he scored against Denmark. I was at that game in November 21, which was a fantastic 1-on-1 with Michael. But that was then. This is now. And Che Adams for me, I felt sorry for him at the Euros last year because we were going back to the old Bertie Vogts years of punting the ball up really high and hoping that Che Adams would get it, and it just wasn't going to work. But Che, again, he's what at Torino. He does score goals, but Kieran Bowie, as I say, excites me. And do you know what really excites me is looking at him and Ben Doak. I can't see. I've said it. Ben Gannon Doak.
Yeah.
And Bowie and maybe the likes of McTominay. I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, he's an unknown to Denmark. He's an unknown to Belarus. I think this could be something quite exciting. I think, but I know Clark's going to go straight for Adams. He always goes back to the same people that he has. Sorry, that's the football my phone that goes when every time something happens, a goal, it rings on my. That's how sad I am about football.
No, not at all.
But yeah, no, I think. But George, let's go about how I do laugh at McGinn. McGinn and I were doing the same thing last year, calling him Jeff Hurst. But George Hurst, I wasn't that kind of all that hype and everything and getting him signed, not signed, but getting him into the squad just before the Greece game. I don't know. I'm still debating. I mean, I often watched him in Liechtenstein and he was good, and they kind of him and Che Adams actually played really well. But again, we're talking what Liechtenstein are at the bottom of the FIFA ranking, so it wasn't exactly Denmark. But they played well together. They played well in terms of crossing and finding each other. So I wonder if they're going to continue with that training. In a week's time when they all get together. We'll see, but I'd like to see George. I'd like to see him as well producing something rather than because he just kind of ran about, during the Greece game and really didn't do a lot. In Iceland, well, he was nowhere to be seen, and he was obviously subbed. So we'll see.
What about Shankland? Do you think Shankland was in with a shout?
I was surprised at Shankland. I thought he would have been called up first rather than Dykes, but. And I said this to a lot of the Tartan Army. Shankland, it was almost as if it was too late of a call up. I mean, I don't know what happens to Clarke. Everybody talks about Shankland. We talked about him in 2022. We was scoring 24 goals for Hearts, and we're all saying, why are you not calling up Shankland? No. But what does he do? He goes the following year, 2023, and then decides, to bring him in, and then uses him as a sub, and you just think this is madness, But I still like Shankland. I think he's dangerous around the goalmouth. Dykes isn't. I don't. It's Dave mentioned he just kind of holds the play up, whereas Shankland will have a go, and it was very frustrating during the Euros last year. He got 22 minutes in total, across the whole of the Euros, when we should have been playing him from the start. But there you go. I'm not Mr. Clarke. I'm not paid the money to decide on the selection.
Here's one for you. Ollie McBurney played for 2 goals, 2 assists this season.
I was just going to ask you about that, Craig.
About Ollie McBurney.
When you were saying the thing about your heart sinks when a particular Scottish player scores the goal, I thought you might be meaning McBurney, but I mean he's scoring goals.
Yeah, and assisting. Yeah.
What do we think? I know we've talked about the defenders, but what did we think about Aberdeen's? Was it Nicky Devlin that had a couple of games? I thought he actually had some really good games at the end of last year.
Yeah, I'd agree. I thought so too. I thought, obviously, from what we've seen briefly of him, I thought he looked really up for it as well, which is one thing that you can say, which I know it's obviously such a tribal fan mentality, but I do feel like that's one of the first things that you want to see when someone's given the opportunity, is them properly going for it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Is he obviously the long-term solution to right back? And at that time, was he the stopgap? Possibly, but I agree. I do quite like what I've seen from him from the minutes that he got last time round, but we'll see.
Right, shall we take a wee break and then we can go back and we'll look at this the substitution strategy Dave's been talking about?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. Right, we're back in a couple of minutes.
So guys, after the break, we've just had a quick look there and seen that, as usual, we all ramble on a little bit. We like to do that on the No Scotland, No Party podcast. You just know it by now. So we're going to save the substitutions and all of that jazz for next week's ep before the game. So tune in for that. We cannot wait to talk a little bit more about the game against Denmark and see, hopefully, what the result is going to be. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Remember to follow us all on the socials. We're going to be putting a big push out on the socials and really trying to up our ante on that. So X on Instagram is the No Scotland No Party podcast. So we'll see you all over there. Craig, Dave, Hazel, thank you all so much, and I will see you next week.
Can I just mention that there will be a pair of ball bags up for grabs for folk that engage with our socials after the Belarus game?
After the Belarus game. There you go. You've had it there. All right. Thank you all so much. Can't wait to speak to you again next time, guys.
Gang. Cheers.
And a bit.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.
We know we ain't no football experts, but we all feel the same about the beautiful game. The game. No Scotland, no party. Podcast for the Tartan Army.